Hello folks, my name is Mark and this is UCD Videos. How you guys doing? So today we're looking at the Go Retro Portable by a company called Retrobit. So I got this a few months ago. It looked pretty cool. Looks like a little Game Boy handheld type game that has a lot of games built in. It says 260 games. And what drew me to this was the number of licensed games. So whenever you see things like this, usually they have a bunch of clone knockoff, know-nothing type games in them, and usually they're not worth playing. And something I noticed here, you can kind of see on the cover on this thing, we've got Megaman, we've got Burger Time, we've got Tetris, and looking at the back here, it looks like there's actually a lot of decent looking games that are included in it. You know, Strider, this is Ghost and Goblins over here. So I was actually kind of interested in this, wondering like, well, what licensed games are actually included. You know, looking at the pictures here, you know, it says it's got, there's Tetris right there. I don't know, these are just all the different genres and stuff, card games, action, brawlers, whatever. None of these actually look like they're licensed games except for that one. That one's Tetris right there. You know, maybe I could just bring this a little closer so you guys can take a look and see what the back of the box here and what these screenshots look like. You know, it looks like they're NES games here, you know, which is probably what they are. So, and then you can kind of see there's Arthur from Ghosts and Goblins, and then Strider. So there's at least some Capcom games. There's at least some Data East games, you know, Burger Time, right? So I'm actually kind of interested to see what's in here. So let's check it out. Now this is an unboxing here. I haven't opened this thing up yet. All I've done is remove the tape on the back here so that we can actually open it. So let's see what we got. Alright, here's our machine, and it is extremely light. Feels kind of hollow actually. Okay, let's just set that right here. And here's their plastic thing on the inside with a cardboard box. So that's pretty much it as far as packaging goes. And then we got our manual right here, instruction manual. Kind of interesting. Let's see here. Different instructions, how to move the, you know, what our insides look like. Okay. Interesting. Instructions for Tetris. Alright, I see Tetris is like a very big thing. We got some Mega Man 2 cheats. Okay. Gunsmoke, Mega Man 3, codename Viper. Alright. Those are all some pretty good games. Let's set this guy up back here. Alright. And let's take a look at this guy. So, yeah, it is extremely light. You know, this thing weighs like 2 ounces. Kind of feels like there's nothing in there. And most likely there's just one circuit board with a, you know, NES on a chip. So let's remove this thing. Let's see what our screen looks like. Alright. There goes the screen. Pretty nice. Okay. How many batteries does this thing take? Let's see here. 4 AA's. Okay, so we'll have to put those in before we can power it up. Okay guys, we're back. So let's take a closer look at the machine before we continue. So first off, this takes 4 AAA batteries, not 4 AA batteries, my mistake. So I got those in there. And see, we got our screen, we got our fire buttons, we got BA, Turbo B, Turbo A, so it says TB, TA, select start and reset buttons with our cross pad. Over here we got an on and an off button switch, and then we have here headphones, AV out, and then that looks like a USB slot, so I'm guessing maybe you can put new games on there. That's kind of cool. If you hear my cat purring over here, he's just having a good time, so try to ignore that. Anyway, so let's turn it on. This is the only first time I've ever turned this thing on before. I haven't even like checked it out yet. So let's see what we got. Okay, sounds pretty good. Got a volume. And it gets pretty loud. Alright. Pretty nice, pretty nice. So we got our featured games and our extra games, so let's check out the featured ones first. And let's see, okay, these look like they're NES games. We got 8 Eyes, that's a good game, 1942-43. Bad Dudes, Bad Street Brawler, that game's horrible, I don't know if you've ever played that. Bionic Commando, pretty good. Buggy Popper, never heard of this one. Burger Time, of course. Codename Viper, that's an awesome game. Commando by Capcom, Dark Lord, don't know what that is. Dash Galaxy, Exid X's, no idea what that is. Ghosts and Goblins, Gunsmoke, Higimaru, Legendary Wings, Megaman 2, 3, Mighty Final Fight. Ooh, shit. Hell yeah, that's awesome. Motor City, never heard of it. Mutant Virus, never heard of it. Nightshade, this is a good game too, Nightshade. Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark. It's a Color Games dream. It's supposed to be horrible. Power Punch, this game really sucks. Pyramids of Ra, never heard of it. Rescue at the Embassy Mission, this is an awesome game right here. Section Z, really good. Side Pocket, really good. Sun, never heard of it. Street Fighter, oh, Street Fighter 2010. Oh wow, it's a good game, it's hard. Strider, that's a good one. What do we got? Target Renegade, yeah, kind of okay, beat 'em up. Tetris, Thunderbolt 2, never heard of it. Treasure Master, that's actually not a half bad game in this. Trojan, of course. Okay, so I'm seeing lots of Capcom, games in there, some no-name games in there, some Color Dreams games, that Bible game. So anyway, let's look at the extra games that we got. This is probably going to be all those like weird knockoffs and stuff that you usually see in these things. 100-meter dash, hurdles, 5-card draw, 7-card stud, abscond, Aether Cruiser, Thar Mission, okay, that's some kind of shooter. Aim Cruise, Aerial Warfare, Area Hero 2, so those look like some kind of shooter games. Animal Contest, I don't even know. Aquarium, Archery, Arena. Autoboat Race, Baccarat, Backgammon, Backstroke, lots of card games I've noticed. Balloon Shoot, Baseball, Big Six Blackjack. Okay, so we're obviously not going to play every single one of these games here. I'm just kind of clicking through them just to see what's up. Breaststroke, looks like there's a lot of kind of sports, Olympic types games. Bug Catcher, okay. Butterfly Swim, that looks just like Breaststroke. Candy Workshop. Circle Racing. Okay, so these kind of look like the usual sort of like, knockoff kind of Chinese originals is what they call them. Devil Dumb Doom. Okay, and you notice that the picture, it seems like they share the same picture for a lot of the other ones. Dragon Den, huh? I wonder what that is. So I don't know. Maybe we'll kind of go through a few of these, but I'm obviously not going to play them all for this video, or else this video is going to be like 2 hours long or whatever. So let's go back. Let's go back and let me turn this down a little. There we go. Let's go back. Let's check out some of the Capcom games here. Let's try something I know. Let's see. You can see me suck at Megaman 2. I'm horrible at this game, so you guys are gonna laugh your asses off at me. But I do know it pretty well, so let's see. Alright, and I'm gonna turn this up a bit because I like the music to Airman. So here we go. Let's see, what do we got here? Alright, you guys are gonna watch me get my ass beat. Ah, son of a bitch. See, Mega Man 2 always does that to you. They make things like, extra lives and shit, like, drop, and then you go to get it, and, like, it ends up killing you. Airman always had, like, the coolest music, Looking good? Yeah, okay. Looks good, sounds good, Seems to be a pretty good, emulator here. Na 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 na. I've always really liked this theme. Ah, this is gonna kill me. There we go. Always lots of leaps of faith and stuff in this particular level. Na 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 na. Ah, fuck you! God, forgot about those. Ah! Alright. See, now you're starting to see where I'm gonna, like, get my ass beat here. Na 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 na. Wow, you know, I'm actually doing, like, not halfway bad here. Because normally I would have died like 7 times by now. I don't know. I was never really good at Megaman, you know. Megaman is always one of those games where I would just, like, die over and over and over and over. You know what I mean? Ah, fuck you. I had a friend named Doug when I was a kid who was like an expert at these games. Mega Man especially. He could like beat the entire thing in like 1 life and shit. He was, I don't know. I'm actually like kind of jamming here. Holy shit, I actually got the Airman. Alright. Now you guys are gonna see me get my ass beat. That's okay. Holy crap, I beat him. I think that is the first time I've ever done that on 1 life. Anyway. Okay, well, let's check something else. Alright folks, let's take a look at some of the games that are on this thing. First thing we have is 8 Eyes, which is a side-scrolling hack-and-slash kind of game with graphics similar to Castlevania. And instead of a whip, you use a sword, and you also have a falcon that you can shoot out to kill bad guys and pick up items and things like that. Pretty good looking game. This was never really one of my favorites. You know, it actually is pretty well done. The screen is a lot more clear than what you're seeing in the video here, but you can notice a little bit of screen tearing here and there, but besides that, the emulation is pretty much flawless. Okay, next game we have is 1942, which is one of the earlier shooters by Capcom. This is a top-down shooting type game set during World War II. And it's a pretty good port of the arcade, but it seems to run a little choppy. I never really liked this particular game. The music in particular I always thought was kind of crappy, and plus it's very simple, very, very easy when it compared to later shooters, so not really my favorite game, but still this is a pretty good port of it. Next one we have is 1943, which is the sequel to 1942. This is, of course, a much better game than the first one. Gameplay-wise, graphics-wise, music is way better. Everything is just a step up. It's very, very, very better. One of the later games to come out on the system, too. Runs a lot smoother than 1942 also. This one I recommend. Then we have Bad Dudes, which is a pretty good 8-bit port of the original by Data East. The graphics are a step down, but it still looks and plays generally the same. You still have all the same moves and that kind of thing, and all the levels are recreated faithfully, and the bad guys and stuff, they all look pretty good. The emulation here is also very close. You know, the machine has no problem with it. It's definitely a plus in the Go Retro's favor. Now we have Bad Street Brawler, which is one of the crappiest, most frustrating NES games I've ever played. This has nothing to do with the machine and how it emulates it. It's just the game itself, in my opinion, is a piece of garbage. I hate this fucking game, it sucks. But, you know, it seems to play it pretty well. This is really not one of my favorite games, as you can tell. You should avoid this one. So this leaves us with some more Capcom games. We have Commando, which is a classic Capcom top-down shooter, where you're an army guy. Kind of the same sort of premise as something like Heavy Barrel or Akari Warriors, something like that. Very, very classic game. You know, machine gun, grenades, awesome game, and a really good port as well. And then, of course, we have the sequel to Commando, which is Bionic Commando, one of the all-time classic NES games, one of my favorites. This is a good example of how sometimes the home version was better than the arcade game. Like, the arcade game was very much a straightforward action platformer, and this one has some exploration and strategy involved. It's a really awesome game. Okay, here we have Burger Time. This is another one of my favorite classic arcade games. You're Pepper the Chef, and you run around trying to make these gigantic, oversized hamburgers while being chased by anthropomorphic eggs, pickles, and hot dogs. The NES port is pretty much arcade perfect. Definitely recommended. This is a game called Buggy Popper, which I think is the Famicom version of a game called Bump and Jump, which is sort of like a comical version of Spy Hunter, except you have the ability to jump over water, obstacles, etc. A pretty good game. It'd be much better if you got additional weapons like spike tires or machine guns or something, but, you know, it is rather satisfying to jump way up in the air and then land on a bad guy car and totally destroy it. This one is Codename Viper, very similar to Rolling Thunder. In fact, it's the exact same thing as Rolling Thunder. With very, very smooth gameplay, good graphics, plays very, very well. Definitely recommend this one. This is Dark Lord, which is an RPG I've never heard of. Funny thing about this one is that it never came out in the United States, but was popular enough in Japan to get a trilogy going. The version that is on this machine looks to be a fan translation, which was released some time back, so kind of like we're getting with this an unofficial release of this game. Like, this is apparently the first time that this particular version of this game has been legally available to buy in the United States, so that's kind of cool. Dash Galaxy and the Alien Asylum. Never actually played this one. I remember reading about it in magazines and stuff, Nintendo Power, that kind of thing. And it seems like an action puzzle platform kind of game that uses gravity and its play mechanics. Pretty fun. Mighty Final Fight, which is the cute version of the Super Nintendo classics and is probably the best beat-em-up on the NES. Very, very well done. One of the later releases, and actually this cartridge is kind of hard to find. Can run you, a couple $100 depending on completeness, so it's kind of cool to be able to play it legally. Power Punch 2, so not all of these games are winners. Power Punch 2 is the unofficial sequel to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and apparently it was so bad that Nintendo wouldn't put their name on it, so it got released anyway as Power Punch 2. And yeah, the game is horrible. I mean, the thing is, it's really not that bad of a game, but when compared to Punch-Out, it's not even close. It's just very unbalanced, it's very hard. And I don't think I've ever gotten past the first guy. I mean, I don't know. It's not a good game. There's a game called Noah's Ark. So there's another one I've never heard of, but the graphics are very good. Apparently this one used some special chips and stuff in order to get like all of this animation and that kind of thing, and the rising water effect, and looks really, really good, and I'm looking forward to actually playing this one a little bit more. Some other honorable mentions: Ghosts and Goblins, Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3, Strider, Tetris, Trojan, Target Renegade. All of them pretty good games. Now let's talk about some of the extra games. Now there seems to be a lot of them here. I'm not going to go through all of them, obviously, but just a couple of them that I tried out so that you can see what they look like. First we have the 100-meter dash, and then another one called Hurdles. And it looks like these were the same game here. Several sports titles that looks like they were originally bundled all together, but then were broken up and made into separate mini games. And the problem was that each one is not really large enough to be its own game. So, but this one, all you're really doing is jamming on the buttons to see how fast you can run the 100-meter dash. And then Hurdles, it's the exact same thing, except you're jumping hurdles. And there's a couple of other games like this in there as well, Olympic-type sports games. And it's like, yeah, you can pretty much skip all of these. Aether Cruiser is a behind-the-ship shooter. Kind of looks like it's going for that sort of Space Harrier kind of thing, but not really in the same league. It doesn't look or play too bad, but the music is just horrible. I mean, this one does seem to even have end-level bosses, so maybe if you keep playing it, there might actually be an ending to it, but I don't know, it's just not really doing it for me. This one is Thar Mission, which is a top-down shooter where you play as a jet fighter that can fly through space. Doesn't really look that bad, but the gameplay is very, very primitive. I mean, there never really seems to be more than one or two bad guys on the screen at any given time, so kind of looks like something you'd play on an early 80s console, like a ColecoVision or something. Bug Catcher. So you play as this weird armless goblin thing and you catch bugs. And the idea is you have to catch the bugs that are the same color as you, and bugs that are a different color hurt you. So it looks like they put a little bit of effort into the graphics for this, but the gameplay is just so simple. It's like this is like a little kid's game. Something that you would see on something like the Leapster, that kind of thing. It really feels like it should be a mini game you play in between levels of something bigger, so. This is Dark Castle, not related to the Genesis or Macintosh game of the same name. Apparently this one is a common game that you find on these types of compilation systems. And it looks like it's an updated version of an old Intellivision game called Night Stalker, but that's really where the similarities end. For the life of me, I can't really figure out how to actually play the game. Like there's little red balls that float around the screen, and apparently touching them lets you kill a dragon, I think, but what are you supposed to do after that? I mean, there doesn't really seem to be a point or a way to progress or any additional levels or anything. Bomb Time is a ripoff of Bomberman. I mean, this one at least seems to be playable, you know, it seems to work pretty well with it. They got the whole Bomberman dynamic down and stuff like that, and I could see this actually being kind of fun, but the music is just horrible, so, you know, you're not going to want to play it, because it murders your ears. Burrow Explorer. Now, I was kind of expecting something like Dig Dug or Boulder Dash, but this looks more like some kind of maze game where you're a little miner and you have to navigate this maze, and the gimmick is that you have this little helmet that can light up and it only lets you see a small distance in front of you. This is not a bad concept, but the game is pretty neat, but it just suffers from this horrible, horrible music. Burrow Explorer. Now, I was kind of expecting something like Dig Dug or Boulder Dash, but this looks more like some kind of maze game where you're a little miner and you have to navigate this maze, and the gimmick is that you have this little helmet that can light up and it only lets you see a small distance in front of you. This is not a bad concept, but the game is pretty neat, but it just suffers from this horrible, horrible music. So let's look at one more of these before we call it quits. This one's called Justice. And it's actually kind of impressive. It's got, it's a side-scrolling action-type game. Kind of reminds me of Sunsoft's Batman, you know. The main character has this sort of flowing cape and really good animation. And I even see a little bit of parallax scrolling going with the clouds up there. Looks pretty good. The rest of the game, though, not that impressive. I mean, there really doesn't seem to be much in the way of game design or anything like that. You just sort of run from left to right and kill the same bad guy over and over and over. And so far, I haven't even found any end bosses or even any additional levels, so that's a little disappointing. I mean, it looks good, but not really getting much out of it gameplay-wise. So anyway, that was my review of the Go Retro Portable. It was a pretty good little game, you know, little machine. I actually kind of like it. The build quality and stuff's pretty good, and it's got some pretty good games on it, you know. A lot of good Capcom games, a couple of like really, impressive ones on there. Megaman games, Bionic Commando. The extra games, you know, they seem to be the same kind of originals that you see on a lot of these type of, compilation type things. A lot of pirate games, that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, they're not really much to write home about, but you don't really buy these things for that. Those, basically, they're just like filler games, you know. I got this for about $29.95 at Target, and for what it is, that's actually a really good deal. I think it's actually worth picking up. So anyway, folks, that's all I got. Adios.